Welcome to Business Legal Lifecycle TV, the live TV show all about the legal aspects of your business to help educate you on complex legal terms in an easy to understand manner, to help understand why you need to do certain things in your business from a legal point of view, and to help you develop a plan for the future. Our mission at Business Legal Lifecycle is to help empower all small to medium-sized businesses around the world to get access to legal advice so that they can help build their communities and make the world a better place. Did you know that any business owner is on average 7 months away from losing everything? That is the average time it takes from a successful business to fold when an aspect of their business is not set up correctly. Have you ever wanted to get legal advice but didn't understand what was going on? Do you feel like there is a divide between lawyers and their clients? Then this TV show is for you. It is all about empowering you and your business with the knowledge and tools to ensure that this doesn't happen to you. Business Legal Lifecycle TV delivers a twice-weekly show focusing on the legal aspects of your business. At lunchtime on Mondays, we present Fast Fix Monday, a quick 5 to 10 minute show that will give you some actionable steps to consider for the week for your business. And at lunchtime on Wednesdays, we present our in-depth show of between 30 minutes and an hour, where we go through complicated legal aspects of your business in a simple to understand, plain English manner. And whether that is through educational pieces or interviews with experts in their fields. Hi everyone, and welcome to Business Legal Lifecycle TV. My name is Jeremy Stretton, and with me today is Craig Mason.
Morning everyone, thanks for joining us.
And today we're doing our first show in Phase 6, which is maximising your business and bringing in investors. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Phase 6 is, and why it comes in this part of the business legal lifecycle, where it comes into the business legal lifecycle. Then we're going to talk about what maximising your business actually means. I'm going to go through that, and then Craig is going to go through bringing in investors and what that means, and then basically we're going to go through some advantages and disadvantages of that process. So Craig, anything you wanted to add before we kick off?
I don't think so. It's a pretty exciting topic this month or this phase, so yeah, hopefully you get some value out of it over the next January 2018. So yeah, let's kick on, Jeremy. Let's go with the first slide.
Yeah, so the first slide is the actual business legal lifecycle itself. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, you can check this out at businesslegallifecycle.com.au. And Phase 6, maximising your business and bringing in investors, really comes in at the bottom of what we call the consolidation phases of the business legal lifecycle. So this is after you've started your business in the first 3 phases, and Phases 4 through 6 are all about consolidation. And so it starts off with bringing on employees, protecting your intellectual property is Phase 5, and then maximising your business is at Phase 6. And the reason that we have it here is that you need to think about how you're going to maximise your business before you start thinking about scaling your business, which are the next 4 phases. And the reason that's important is that before you go expanding, you need to make sure that you've plugged all the holes and all the problems that are in your business. And the way to do that is actually to have some time and go through a reflective process about what your business is, where it's up to, and where it could go into the future. So what we want to do is to basically take a step back in this month and in this phase and have a think about, okay, so what is it that we need to do in our business to make sure that it's all set up properly, so that if we choose to scale, and remember that there are many ways to be right and you don't have to scale, that you're set up properly for the scaling process. And there are different thought processes that need to go into different businesses. So this video and this phase is not about, or this podcast as well, is not about telling you everything that you need to know about Phase 6. You really need to have a think about what is right for you and your business. So let me start off by talking about what is maximising your business all about. Now, I know lawyers have a negative reputation for talking about what they're doing by saying what they're not doing, but I think it's important here to really think about what we're not talking about in maximising your business. And that isn't the old pre-industrial or even industrial era thinking of maximising your business by having everyone work in your business really, really hard and maximising their hours and working themselves tooth and nail. That just doesn't work these days. So what you need to do in maximising your business is really think about 3 key areas. The first one, what's the type of business that you're in? How do you operate that business? And then if you have staff, how your staff are going to be maximized for your business. As I said before, there are many ways to be right, so don't take this as gospel that you have to maximize your business one way or the other. But these are the three factors that we see are important to actually maximizing your business. So the type of business that you're in really does help to determine what maximizing your business is all about. You need to look at what business you're in, what the purpose of the business, and then work out, well, what does that actually look at for maximizing your business? Having a factory as opposed to a professional services business will greatly determine the difference between how you're actually going to maximize that business. So I'd like you to think about the type of business that you're in and write that down and think about, well, what can you actually put in place to actually maximize that business? You also need to assess your goals. So I said before, you need to think about the purpose of your business. So here is another time when you need to think about your goals. And that's something that we talked about in phase 1 conception, to set down your goals for your business. Well, it's important at this point as well, because when you're in business, you'll often have ideas and goals that will change. So you need to think about how those things are going to change and see what those goals are and how they move. There's nothing wrong with changing your goals, and this is the point in time to go and do that. So make sure that you reassess your goals and that you have a real think about what your objectives are, and make sure that you're on the right way for the type of business that you're in. The next one is to have a think about the way that you operate your business. Now, what am I talking about there? Here I'm referring to the time that you spend working in your business as opposed to the time that you're working on your business. If you're someone who wants to work a lot of hours in their business, and that's doing the day-to-day work, the billable work, or helping the actual work of the business that brings in the income, then that's fine. But you just need to be aware that there are limitations on the amount of time that you can spend. So here you need to have a think about, how much time do you actually want to spend on your business? A good rule of thumb is to spend at least 40% of your time on the business if you can. But if you're someone who wants to work in their business for the next 10 to 20 years, there's nothing wrong with that. But the difference of the work that you can do and how you can maximize that business is very different. So if you want to spend more time working on your business, then you'll need to have staff and actually employ people to help you scale and build a great business. I heard a great quote just on the 1st of January, actually, excuse me, from Richard Branson, who said, if you want to build a business and you want to scale a business, you need to find people that can do your job as 80% as well as you. Don't try and find someone at 100%. You'll never find that right person, but 80%. I thought that was a really great little quote and a way to think about if you are going to be looking at maximizing your business. Because no one will ever do it as well as you do, and that's fine, but that's a good rule of thumb to think about when you're looking at expanding your business, if that's what you want to do. If you choose to work in your business the majority of your time, and that's where your passion is, and that's what you want to do for the next 10, 20 years, there's nothing wrong with that. Just acknowledge that, and don't think that there's a problem with that moving forward. So the third factor that I said at the beginning was bringing in staff. And so this is something that we've talked about a bit in the Business Legal Lifecycle, and something that we are going to talk about later in the year when we talk about phase 4, bringing on employees. Bringing on employees is not for everyone. However, if you decide to bring on employees, then you need to make sure that they're aligned to your goals and that you're willing to spend the time to actually train them to help them help you build your business. There's no point in bringing someone in if you're not willing to train them up, and if there's no point in them actually doing what you want them to do. So remember that you need to bring in staff, and they'll also help you determine how you maximize your business. So I'll talk about how you maximize your business in a second, but it's important to think about what businesses you have and what maximizing your business is all about. And I just wanted to talk about an example here. And there's many examples of businesses that tried to expand too quickly by bringing on staff. But the business I wanted to talk about here was a business that was a Southeast Queensland in Australia based business, and it provided professional services. I won't give any names away, obviously, to protect the innocent. But this business started as a sole operator, and it was a really successful business. And he started to see the benefits in expansion, but wanted to do a lot of the work himself. The benefits he saw were greater revenue, which in turn he thought would lead to greater profits. and also the prestige of owning and operating a large business rather than a sole operator that he thought he could sell to a large competitor or even a private equity business in the future. His strategy for growth, though, was one that was not well and caused a lot of problems, but it's something that we see a lot, and that was an aggressive acquisition of smaller, like-minded businesses. And when I say like-minded, I probably mean like businesses, so in the same profession, not like-minded in the sense that they didn't have the same goals and aspirations. Done right, this strategy has been very successful over many years, but done poorly, it can actually cause a lot of problems, and in this case, it was done poorly. Here, the gentleman looking to expand his business did a lot of vendor financing arrangements with his sellers. He kept the people in the business, and the problem was that these people weren't aligned with his goals and where he wanted to go with his business. They simply wanted just to get their money out of their business. The problem with the vendor finance arrangements were that they were very favoured towards the seller, because in any vendor finance is because they are a risky transaction. So what he found was he was paying a large price for the businesses and trying to expand his business that way while still paying an income and a wage to the previous owner who, let's face it, most vendor finance arrangements, the people think that they're still operating the business that they always have. So what happened? Well, long story short, the business began to default because he wasn't able to make the repayments. People weren't able to get the business and the income that they thought they were able to get, and so they didn't want to continue with the vendor finance arrangements. They had their own clients that they were continuing to go for, and basically he tried to expand on the coattails of these other businesses, and they weren't able to do that. The business failed, and some of the business owners left and went and started their own businesses, took back clients, and it was all too much, and the business ended up folding. Now, that's an extreme example, but it does happen all too often when someone who was looking at maximizing his business and expanding just didn't have the right chocks in place to begin with. So there are many lessons to be learned from that example, but for the purposes of phase 6, which is what we're talking about in January 2018, this gentleman really needed to focus on building his business rather than looking at just buying other businesses to help expand his own. He got to the point where all he saw were the bright lights, and he thought that the large returns were inevitable, but that all ended up failing for him. So what you need to do is, before you start thinking about expansion, is really maximize what you have and make sure that you have your systems in place, because when you don't, that's when your problems multiply into the future. Excuse me. So the next slide is, how do you maximize your business? So once you've determined what maximizing your business actually looks like, you need to determine how you're going to do it. Now, this is very important that you actually sit down and think about what your plan's going to be. So this is where you need to think about, well, what are the things that you're going to do? Are you going to maximize your revenue? Are you going to use the 80-20 principle? These are proven methods to actually maximize your business in a great way. So what are we talking about maximizing your revenue? Well, all business owners and all investors in business want to maximize their revenue. Let's face it, that's the purpose of being in business. Maximize the revenue for the shareholders. The problem with doing that is that that's a singular focus that doesn't actually help you achieve your greater goals in your business. So you need to have a think about, well, how do you maximize your revenue, and what does it actually look like? So you need to make sure that you've got enough money to feed your family, and also making sure that you've got enough time to work on your business. Even if you're a sole operator, you need to actually spend time working on your business. You can't just not and just expect the business to keep on chugging along, because if you aren't moving forwards, you're moving backwards. If you've got staff, then that's great, and you can look at scaling your business, and you need to look at the way that you're going to get your employees working to maximize their output. As I said before, the old thoughts of working employees to the bone just doesn't work anymore. So you need to work out, well, how are you going to maximize their time working in the business, and also, if you want them, working on the business, and how you're going to maximize that for your business. You got to remember that, in this day and age, and we're doing this recording in 2018, people stay somewhere between 4 to 2 years in a job. people are very mobile. So you need to think about, well, how are you going to maximize the people that you have? The second point on how to maximize your business is a very important principle that I've been doing a lot of work research on, is the 80-20 principle. And this is the fact that 80% of your work comes from the top 20% of your clients. So you need to work out who those top 20% are and really focus in on those. Another thing that Perry Marshall, who's done a lot of work in this, and in his book, The 80-20 Sales and Marketing, The Definitive Guide to Working Less and Making More, he talks about the fact that the 80-20 principle is actually goes up in a bell curve kind of way, not a bell curve, a exponential kind of way. That you start off with the 80-20 principle, but then in the top 20, the top 80% comes from the top 20% of the people in the top 20%, and it keeps them going up in an exponential way. So you need to have a think about, well, who are my top 20% and who are my bottom 20%? Get rid of the bottom 20% and focus in on the top 20%, because you'll find that you'll grow your business in a much better way. I'm not going to try and go through and regurgitate the whole lot of Perry Marshall's book, but if you're interested in that, check it out. It's a really interesting read and gives a great overview of that. So as I said before, there's many ways to be right in maximizing your business and how to maximize your business. Maximizing your business by making sure that you focus on the important clients and the important work, making sure that you get the right revenue. They're all really important things, but you need to figure out what's right for you and your business. So have a think about that and how you're going to maximize your business when you're in phase 6, and that will help you go forward into the future. Craig, before we go on to bringing in investors, did you have anything you wanted to add on maximizing your business?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, Jeremy, I think you've summarised it pretty well there. Obviously, as I said at the beginning, it's a pretty exciting topic and a pretty important one to get right, obviously, because as Jeremy said in one of the case files there, that getting it wrong can put you back a long way in terms of your business journey. So make sure you spend the time to think about it and don't rush into making these sorts of decisions, because they are important for the future. So I think good summary. All right, excellent. So the next part of this phase is bringing in investors, as the phase title outlines. So obviously, as I just said, before you go about maximizing your business, the same way when you're thinking about bringing in investors, is you don't just put a sign up somewhere and expect everyone to come in and just pick someone and off you go, and it's great and fantastic. If that happens for you, then great. But obviously, it's a big step, and you need to consider and give some serious thought as to whether bringing an investor is right for your business. So you want to look at the advantages, the disadvantages, those sorts of things. We're going to go through that in a bit more detail as well shortly. But you need to think about this pretty seriously and not just rush into it, because it's a pretty important thing. Obviously, getting an investor in there is going to allow you to do certain things in your business, which is going to be great. But the downside to it is that if you spend all this time, find an investor, and it doesn't work out, it's going to put you back years and years. So make sure that you look at this pretty carefully and give the right consideration for it. So in terms of the next slide. Cool. All right. So the next slide up there for those watching us is what is an investor? And for those on the podcast, there's a slide there that says what is an investor, and it's got a picture of someone considering their paperwork. So, there's different types of investors, obviously, that you can bring into the business depending on the type of business and what it is. There's venture capitalists, which is one type of business investment, sorry. And so that's a person that basically uses other people's money, who then invest in businesses and other various things. So they'll want to see, obviously, an established business, see what you've done in the business, make sure it's operating well. So all those things that we've spoken about previously in the life cycle, these things become important at this stage, because someone's going to be looking at your business essentially like they're going to be buying it to that extent, because they're going to put money in and invest it. So they want to make sure you've got all the things in place, that it's a good business, and you've got some long-term future strategies and plans, and you're not just sort of flying by the seat of your pants. So they want to see goals and those sorts of things. So they'll obviously get all the money from other individuals, put together an amount, and then they're going to invest in the actual business as a venture capitalist. So, as I said, they're going to look at the history, those sorts of things. They may not be looking for a struggling business, and as part of the life cycle, we wouldn't be saying that if it's struggling that you'd be doing this at this stage. But they're going to be looking at a successful, or they've got a long-term strategy. If it is a struggling business, then it may need more than just cash to fix it. So they're going to look at all those sorts of things. When you're thinking about venture capitalists as an investment, you're really bringing in essentially a partner into your business, and you've got to recognise that and make sure that you can understand that they're going to be looking to make decisions and be involved in it. So you've got to make sure that you're happy for that to happen, because if you're not, then that's not the right investment in your business. So you need to think about all those sorts of things. The next one is a angel investor. Now, you're more likely to get an angel investor in phase 2, which is the startup phase of the life cycle. And the reason for this usually is that an angel investor is looking for a startup business. They know that as a startup business, you've got early cash flow problems, those sorts of things, and they want to put money in early as an angel investor. They'll take a chance in the business basically on the fact that it's a new area or a niche product or whatever it might be, and they recognise that if they get in early, they're going to invest money and probably get a larger stake in the business for what they wouldn't get if they were investing in 5 years' time when it was a successful one. So that's an angel investor. There can still be angel investors in this sort of area as well. And again, you need to properly consider it and make sure that the angel investor is right for you and your business. Make sure your goals are aligned, those sorts of things. You want someone that's coming in that's not going to want to put some money in and get a quick profit and get out in a year's time when you've got goals of expanding and doing all sorts of things over the next 10 years. So make sure you've got the right person involved and do your due diligence and all those sorts of things. The other type of investment is crowdsourcing. So this is probably a new sort of area of funding, and you've probably seen in the news and those sorts of things about crowdsourcing. It's probably a difficult area to get money, particularly in Australia, because Australia is a little bit behind in terms of their laws and those sorts of things. Not having a particular criticism of Australia, but the fact of the matter is they are. And it's obviously they haven't evolved to allow for crowd funding and sourcing to be used in this way, but obviously that's going to change the more and more it becomes popular and used elsewhere. And so that's where it's probably more the phase 2 startup again, where you put it out there that you're looking to start a particular business or sell a particular product or whatever it is, and everyone gets their piggy bank out and then puts it in the crowdsourcing, and you get a large pool of money that you then use to do whatever it is that you're asking for the money for. So again, they're probably looking at more sort of smallish type things, or those sorts of things. They mightn't be looking for long-term successful investment. So you want to think about that one as well, but obviously it's not going to be for everyone. One of the largest types of investments that you'll see in this sort of area is family and friends. Obviously you're talking to your family and your friends, and you want them to be your family and your friends after they make these investments, but you still got to look at it as a financial decision and something that you want the right family member and the right friend to be involved. Because again, if you get the wrong one in there, they may start to take over, those sorts of things. We'd encourage, and this is us as lawyers, to make sure all these things are documented as well. And I should have said that at the beginning, that whenever you bring in investors, you want to have proper documentation for all this. And I think it becomes particularly relevant for family or friends, because you may think, oh well, it's my uncle, I don't need to worry about any form of agreement, because if something happens, we'll just sort it out over the kitchen table. That's hopeful. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, and you want to make sure you've got agreements in place. So if something does happen, whatever it might be, that you've got documents to cover, if someone's exiting and those sorts of things, if there's a dispute over something, that you've got something in place to allow you to resolve it. So don't just go into it with a handshake over a turkey on Christmas Day. I'd encourage everyone to make sure you think about it properly and then consider it and look at it the same way that you would look at any other investor. You want the right person being involved, and not just anyone that you haven't looked into. Obviously, if it's your family and friends, you know a lot about them. You may have seen them, operating businesses, those sorts of things. But you still need to consider it and do all the due diligence, as they will do to you as well. But yeah, encourage everyone to make sure you look at it and make sure that it's the right person. Obviously, money, disputes, those sorts of things, it changes people for the good or the bad. So if you want to obtain an investment from family or friends, then you need to take a pragmatic approach to it and make sure you consider it. So it's not something just to jump in on, and you need to look at it pretty carefully, particularly with family and friends, because you're not only getting an investor in, but you're also going to have to share your birthday with them. So make sure you've got it all in place.
Next one.
Next one. Okay, so how can you actually use an investor in your business? So we're in the phase where sort of maximising and doing those sorts of things. So there's many ways that you can use an investment to build your business. It's not just to give you, it's going to give you the money, obviously, but it also is going to give you the tools and knowledge and those sorts of things from the person that you bring in. The right investor, can be a trusted advisor to your business, or a board member or whatever it might be. And it's got someone there that you can assist with making decisions. Business by yourself would be a lonely place, but having someone else there to bounce ideas off, those sorts of things, is one of the good reasons to have or how you can use an investor. It's not just about the money, it's milking them for everything they've got, essentially. But some investors will want to take a back seat and all they want to do is just put the money in, and that's cool as well. But as long as you know that at the beginning, the problem you'll face is if you don't know that at the beginning, you're expecting Bill Gates to come in and give you all this advice, and Bill just wants to sit back and not really do anything, then maybe that wasn't the right person that you wanted to be an investor in your business. So you need to make sure you've looked at that. The level of involvement at the beginning before you get the money is pretty important there. So documenting it, those sorts of things, which I've already said, ultra important, making sure that's all done at the beginning, not at the end when the what hits the fan. You want to make sure that it's all documented, everyone's on the same page. And we speak about that a lot in the business legal life cycle, is aligning your goals, speaking to your advisors, doing all those sorts of things to make sure that you're going to make the right decision. You don't just rush in. Jeremy said, write things down before. We want everyone to do that. That's a good way of making a decision, coming up with a decision-making process, writing it all down, going through it all, talking to your advisors. Those sorts of things is very important in this area, because you don't want to get it wrong, as I said before. So I think how you can use an investor in your business is pretty straightforward. We've kind of covered most of that. It's not just about the money, as I said. There are other reasons and how you can use them. So I think that's probably how you can use an investor in your business. Jeremy, what was next?
Sounds good. Well, I'll go through advantages and you can go through disadvantages of investors. Excuse me. So I'm going to go through three main advantages of investors. The first one is an injection of funds. So, any investor that you have in your business needs to inject something in your business, and normally that's cash. It could be that you're bringing an investor for a particular skill, but that you wouldn't normally do that in phase 6. You'd normally do that in phase 2. If you're going to bring in an investor, have someone who is going to be part of your business and be a partner with you, then without injecting some funds, then that's usually a phase 2 investor. Here, you want to get some sort of money. You want to get some cash to be able to do something in your business. There are many ways to be right with that, but just bear in mind that that's probably the main advantage of actually getting an investor, is a cash injection. The second is, and Craig talked about a bit in the last bit, was advice and experience. So depending on the type of investor that you get, that you should have someone who you're able to lean on to give you advice, and that use their unique knowledge and experience to help you to build the business that you want. Because they'll have an interest in your business, then they'll usually be happy to be a sounding board or a member of the board even, and give you advice and guidance based on their knowledge and experience. So that's really important, to have the right investor to give you that kind of advice. The last advantage is prestige. Depending on the type of business that you're trying to develop, prestige may be very important. You may want to have someone in the business who's got a very prestigious following in the industry that you're in, and look at the various public companies that have board members who are investors, who are well-known people in their industry. You may want to have the same type of person to help credibility in your business. So they're the main three advantages of bringing in investors. Craig, did you want to talk about the disadvantages?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the disadvantages is potentially a loss of equity. So usually when you bring in an investor, they'll want something, and that's usually going to be equity in the business. So, that's a disadvantage. As long as you know that's going to be the case going into it, obviously, then you can make a considered decision about that. But losing equity in your business is definitely going to be a disadvantage, but it's a necessary one, I think, if you're going to go down that path. The other one is, and it sort of goes with loss of equity, is loss of control. So when you're giving equity to someone in your business, then they're going to have some form of control in that business now as well, unless you've got someone that doesn't want to do that. And again, we've sort of harped on it and said it maybe 100 times already, but you need to make sure that all these sorts of things are worked out at the beginning, so you know what involvement they're going to be, whether or not you are going to lose any control, etc., etc. But it sort of goes without saying that once you give someone equity and they invest, then some level of control in your business is going to be lost as well. So that's going to be a disadvantage. So each type of investor and the type of investments have different aspects, as we've said, different advantages and disadvantages. As I discussed previously, and as Jeremy mentioned, writing these things down, going through some form of analysis to determine the right investor, the right person, those sorts of things, is what you must do before you step into this phase. We've seen time and time again people doing and rushing into it, and unfortunately, their business doesn't go as they plan. And I'm sure there's plenty out there that have done it quickly and been successful as well. But taking the time, considered approach, we think is a good idea at this point of your life cycle of your business. So I think that's probably it for today. Jeremy, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that covers everything. I hope everyone's got some value out of that. As we've alluded to, this is January 2018. The theme is Phase 6, bringing in investors and maximising your business. So please join us. We've got some great interviews coming up this month with some real great business leaders who have expanded their businesses and advised people in that. And we've got some really great tips as part of Fast Fix Monday for January. So please continue to join us, whether you're watching it on the Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, or listening to us on the podcast, because we'd love to get your feedback. And as always, feel free to email us at lifecycle@jeremystretton.com or comment on any of the platforms that I mentioned before, and we'd be happy to answer your questions and give you any advice and help that you need in your business. So that's it from me today. Craig, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, other than say, as Jeremy said, thanks for joining us. We look forward to you joining us for the rest of this month, talking about this phase. We know you're going to get some great value out of it. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.